You also provide a sort of mentorship role to the community at large, right? What role do you play there?
I remember, vividly remember having support at an early age when I started racing that had one or two people that really kind of looked out for you, or you were able to bounce ideas off that really helped me. Once in a while, I'll get a message, hey, can I ask you a quick question about something? And if I have the time, I usually try to do it. It's not a big deal. A short little quick conversation and it can help out and make an impact for people.
Joining us in the studio today is a former Canadian downhill racer turned freerider turned bike team manager. He's competed at the highest levels of racing, including world championships, national championships, and even the X Games. He's been featured as a rider in many films throughout the years, pioneering the ways of modern freeriding. Please welcome bike industry veteran Andrew Shandro. Hey, Andrew.
DZ, thanks for having me.
Good to see you, buddy. Where are you calling in from today in the world?
I am in North Vancouver. I'm actually down at the SRAM office.
Oh man, you HQ out of there occasionally, don't you?
It's a beautiful office they have down here. I'm fortunate I get to come and hang out and get energy, talk to the people, do some work. My
Cool.
our kids are back home, so the house is full, so it's hard to find a quiet place.
Well, thanks for taking time out of your day and joining us. Andrew, you're familiar with Changing Gears. You've seen some of the episodes. Some of your athletes have been on it, which is great. We're going to start from the basics
Yeah,
just to let our audience members know a little bit about you and where you came from. So let's just go with the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in beautiful North Vancouver. I
A
haven't moved,
stone's throw from where you are, right?
literally. Yeah, probably a kilometer from here. Yeah.
Have you ever lived for a long period of time anywhere else?
Yeah, we moved. My dad used to work in the ski industry, so he actually worked out of Toronto for a couple of years. So we lived on sort of the suburbs of Ontario for a few years, and I would have been kindergarten, kind of grade one sort of time. So it's just,
Yeah,
however, what are you, six, seven, eight,
yeah, yeah.
something like that. So yeah, we lived there for 2 years, but with the exception of that, born and raised on the North Shore and still here.
And your dad was in the ski biz. What'd your mom do?
My mom did lots of different things. She's a talent, an incredible chef.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but no, she did lots of different things. Teaching. Yeah, anyways, her passion is she's a good athlete, but her passion is cooking.
Did she ever make money out of cooking, or was she just an amazing
No,
cook for the family?
no, we were just the recipients of incredible food growing up.
Well, North Van for sure has some amazing produce and culinary trends, right? I mean, you got it all
Yeah,
there.
Vancouver is we've got everything here. So food's
Yeah.
incredible.
Andrew, do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have an older brother.
What does he do, and where is he in the world?
He is a North fan as well. Um, he's a fund manager, so he's in the finance world.
And you're married and have a couple kids too, right? What are your kids' ages?
Ethan's 21 now and Miles 19. Ethan just finished second year of school. He's in business school for his third and fourth year, and Miles first year arts, humanities. And they're just back home from the University of Victoria on Vancouver Island.
So you guys are empty nesters, huh?
Yeah, for like 8 months a year. It's actually pretty sweet. And then they come back and you're like, whoa, we have like four adults now living in our house.
Do they come and go as they please now? Like no rules, no curfews?
Yeah, I guess that's been kind of going on for a few years, once you hit grade 12, first year university. I mean, they've been gone now for a couple of years, or at least Ethan has, Mael, but yeah, they kind of come and go. But we might have to have a little family meeting next week to sort of lay out the ground rules again. They're
Yeah,
good
yeah.
kids though, so.
When you were a kid, what were some of the activities that you were into? Were you into biking early on or football, soccer? What were you into?
Yeah. So my folks they put us into everything, literally. So played a lot of soccer, played a little bit of hockey, ski raced. That was kind of I would say focused a lot of our attention. Well, my like 10 to 15 ski raced. And so we were a skiing family. But we did everything, like played tennis and then played trombone in the jazz band at school. They tried to like make us well-rounded human beings.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we did. We kind of did everything, and the biking kind of started coming into the picture probably when I was about 15, 16.
Before we get into biking, let's talk about skiing. So, growing up in North Van or Vancouver area,
Yeah,
I'm assuming Whistler was your mountain of choice that you
yeah,
guys would go to all the time.
yeah. We're fortunate. That's where we skied like 90% of our time was Whistler.
Yeah. If you didn't ski Whistler, where'd you ski?
I'd ski the local mountains like Grouse Mountain, which is just above our house, basically the sky ride. It was like a 5-minute drive, and you could just get on this. So after school, you could go up there and ski, or
Yeah.
which is pretty fun. As a kid in elementary school or high school, you get to after school, you can go up and ski for a couple hours.
Amazing. Were you in a school also that would have skiing as sort of part of the curriculum?
My Christine, my wife I wasn't. Um, and that sort of, because at a certain age, you have to really kind of commit to ski racing. And I didn't. Like, soon as you hit like, kind of 15, it's sort of like you really have to make that commitment to ski racing. I didn't make that full commitment, but there certainly are schools here that are centered around like helping athletes or musicians or dancers or whatever that is in those different, whatever your interests are. But
Yeah.
I wasn't as committed to ski racing as you kind of needed to be, I guess.
All right, let's jump to, 15 years old.
Yeah,
The bike enters your life.
yeah.
Tell me about that first moment where, you sort of graduated from maybe your first bike to like a legit bike, and what was that experience like?
Well, I vividly remember like my dad was into biking. He'd been into road cycling for years, and he was really the one that got us into mountain biking. I remember my first mountain bike. It was this Nishiki Bushwhacker. It was this heavy Kamali thing. And being in Whistler in the summers, we would push up the fire road or ride up the fire road. My brother being a couple years older than me and strong, and I'd try to ride up some of it. I'd push, and we'd just go up the fire road and then blast back down the fire road. And that was sort of our introduction to mountain biking a little bit. And then I learned how to do wheelies in front of the house. I'd spend hours in front of the house, like most kids will tell you the same thing. You want to learn how to do wheelies. So I'd spend hours doing the wheeling and then jumping off stairs and doing that. So that was my first introduction to mountain bike, and that would have been the 80. I gotta think it was like 86, maybe.
Were you, you were doing all the fun stuff that kids do when they first
Yeah.
sort of get into bikes, like jumping off of steps and whatnot. Did you build ramps and jumps as well? Like,
Yeah.
I remember I got plywood and, pallets and we would build stuff. Did you do that too?
Oh yeah.
Cool.
We'd we'd see how far we could jump off a curb that down maybe a little dirt kind of bankment. So you'd see how far you can go. Then you'd mark it off and you'd measure it like how far you went. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's sort of that was my passion. Was That was my first mountain bike. I got to back up slightly. I raced BMX a little bit, but I'd only raced BMX for maybe 1 or 2 years, and I didn't do it that seriously, but I dabbled in it a little bit. So
Right.
I would say I was into bikes, you know, 12, 13.
What about heroes in sport? Did you fall, like, did you look up to Wayne Gretzky or like Michael Jordan, or,
Oh
are
yeah.
there just heroes in sport that you were enamored by?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like Gretzky for Canadian, if you follow hockey, he was the king, and Jordan and
Right.
everything, and then ski racing or free skiers or all that. I was sort of again, we sort of did so many different sports. I'd say I appreciated all sort of different disciplines and whatnot. Um, but yeah, the bike thing. I mean, when we really started mountain biking was so new. You know,
Right.
like when was the first World Championships?
Like
Was it
nine?
when was was it 88?
I don't know. Like when did HB? When
89?
did HB win?
Durango 80.
Somewhere around there.
I graduated high school in 89, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, SRAM was only founded in 87
Yeah.
with grip shift, but it was for the road, and it wasn't until 91 that they had a mountain bike version. So right around, late 80s, early
Yeah.
90s, I'd say. Yeah, so if you got that Nishiki in 86,
Yeah.
um, yeah, you were sort of on the early stages of the evolution of mountain biking.
Yeah.
We know it today, right? So what about school, Andrew? What were you a good student? What did you study in school?
I was a reasonable student. I had a lot of energy. I did fine. I got through high school. I dabbled. I don't know if we want to jump ahead to that, but I dabbled went to a community college. And then I went on BCIT, which is a BC Institute of Technology. I took some like basic business stuff and marketing courses and public speaking courses. I did a little bit of that. But
Nice.
during that time is when I sort of really decided that I was going to try to get biking a good go.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a trip prior to that when I just turned 19. I don't know if you want me to talk about that at all.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had an
Let's
epiphany,
go there.
but while I was tree planting in BC, I don't know if it's kind of all throughout Canada, but you go tree planting in the summer, it's piecework, you plant these samplings and if you get paid by how much you plant in a day, right? So anyways,
Yeah.
you can make good money, but it's really hard work. Anyways, I did this for a summer and I turned 19 when I was away. And then I used that money. I went traveling. Um, and I went to like Fiji and the Cook Islands, New Zealand, Australia. I went traveling with another buddy. And on that trip, I was like, you know what? I'm going to put my head down when I get back and I'm going to give mountain biking a go. I'd already raced some races, some local stuff in
Yeah.
BC and Vancouver and had some success. And at that time I was just like, you know what, I just sort of like I wanted to dig into it and give it a go.
Was that in the days of like John Tomac and Greg Herbold? They were just starting to make, put mountain biking and mountain bike racing on the map.
Oh
Was
yeah.
it that era?
Yeah, 100%. Like 88, 89. I mean, Tomac and HB and on the XC side, Ned and Frishy and oh yeah, Tomac was like everyone's hero back then. You looked up to him and you're like, he was the man.
Okay, well take us so you have this travel, this world tour, you have an
Yeah.
epiphany that you're going to give mountain biking a go. Did you drop out of school and just start putting your name out of there?
No, I did drop out of school. I was only in school part time at this point. So I was just like,
Yeah.
and then I think I think what it was is there were some local races up in Whistler, Blackcomb, like the BRC Challenge and the Can-Am Challenge, which were these local events that would then attract some US athletes, like top level XC athletes. They would come up here and race. And back then, you would race the XC on a Saturday and then the hill climb on the Sunday,
Hmm.
have a burger at the top, throw on your arm warmers and race the downhill on the same bike. Like we did that as juniors. So that was like, whatever you're 17, 18, right? And so
Yeah.
I ended up doing those and doing well at them. And then you can compare your times to the pros that were racing downhill. And then I feel like I had some natural ability there. And so again, fast forward after those, grade 11, grade 12, 19, go on a trip, growing up a little bit. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. And then I ended up, I ended up going to, well, I guess I was in Europe. I went to World Championships, would have been my first World Championships in Il Choco, Italy when I was
Yeah.
19. I raced Mont Saint Anne, which was like, back then they were called Super Cups, but they were UCI sanctioned events.
Yeah.
They were what the World Cup is now or was back, when it started. And so I ended up winning this race in Mont Saint Anne when I think I was, what year was that? I was like 91 or something was the first year I won it.
Yeah. Were you in juniors or were you
No, that would
elite?
have been senior.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been senior. So I would have been I guess I would have been 20, at about 20.
Yeah.
And then, so I won it and when I was 20, and then the next year was sort of the big one for me. Tomac and a bunch of the top US athletes again were there. And I ended up winning it. And Tomac was second.
Ooh.
And so that was sort of like I would say the catalyst to where like my career sort of like trajectory in terms of committing full time to racing.
What team were you on that year? And then did you stay with that team after winning?
Yeah, I think I started off like I think I was riding some bikes called a Sama, ASAMA, which you've never heard of, I'm sure.
Uh-uh.
I had
No.
this guy, this really nice guy that used to help me out when I was a young kid, and he helped me get going. I had this titanium hardtail, it was sweet. But the year I think that I won when I beat Tomac, I think I was on a brand called Koga Mayada.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I
That's
think
what is it, didn't HB ride that?
HB rode Mayada, and I think that's when I think that was the year that when I won or when I beat Tomac. I think I was on Koga.
Yeah.
And and then from there, it's sort of like I rode for Iron Horse, I rode for Marin, I rode for a few different teams throughout the 90s.
Andrew, so let's stay in that 90s era.
Yeah,
Stay in the zone where you're racing and you're getting paid, right? You're getting some bonuses and you're actually getting paid to do what you love, right? To
yeah,
ride your bike and race.
yeah.
What was the standout sort of highlight of that era? Something you're most proud of?
Something I'm most proud of. Well, I think for sure obviously your first time or doing something first, whatever. Beating Tomac was obviously very memorable because he was like in all the magazines and everyone looked up to him. So beating him at that race was like a huge, huge highlight, something that I'll
Yeah.
always remember. But I think, again, just having the opportunity to race and be on these teams and get paid to race your bike, you're incredibly fortunate if you can call yourself a bike racer and you can get, or whether you're free rider or racing or whatever, if you're actually getting paid to ride your bike or whatever that is, you're very fortunate. And, but yeah, I don't know. Like on the racing side, I think there's little things I really like winning the Canadian national championships. Like, though you take pride in racing your national championships. I always like really enjoyed racing in Canada, and
Yeah.
it's a bit more of a casual environment. Um,
Yeah.
but I was sort of the first Canadian male that had sort of any success at a high level, whether that be at the Norbas or the World Cup. So I was that first sort of crop of male. I was the sort of the first one, I guess, at the time.
Yeah. And was your family super supportive? Would they travel with you to all the races?
Oh yeah, for sure. My mom and dad were totally supportive. I mean, of course, they're worried. My mom
Yeah.
was more worried than my dad, and about like, well, how are you going to make a living mountain biking? This is in '92 or '93, and then I remember signing my first pretty good contract. I rode for Marin Bikes for a couple of years. We had a fun team. Daryl Price was on that team. Marla Strab. We had a good time. Um, but I remember, again, I got this contract. It was a 2-year deal. It was pretty good money. My mom and dad were away, and I told my mom there. My mom was like, "Okay, I guess you can race mountain bikes and make a go of it." But yeah, without their support, without my dad's support, for sure, there was never any question. There was never like, okay, you want to give this a go, and it's kind of obscure, but I
Yeah.
totally support you. So that there was never hesitation. So that was a huge, I'm very fortunate.
Andrew, what was your backup plan? Did you have one at the time?
No,
Like if you broke your leg or
no,
something, like what were you gonna do?
I didn't have a backup plan.
Your backup plan was no plan.
I wasn't thinking backup plan. I was thinking, how am I gonna like keep this going and keep racing? And it teaches you a lot of
Yeah.
life lessons. You'll have harder years and some good years, and you learn how to. Back then we didn't have agents or whatever. Maybe
Right.
some people did it, but you're doing all your own contracts. You're doing, you're communicating with the brands and the marketing folks and whatever it is. So you're learning a lot. You're learning like some real world life lessons, I would say. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
School life. And you got to travel, right? I mean, these brands and these races were all over the world, right?
Yeah, for sure. We were racing, I mean, all over Europe. Um, I don't know how many times I went to Europe, numerous times, all over the States. Obviously, in the 90s, the Norba National Series was big. And they were like mini World Cups and really well supported.
Yep.
So yeah, traveling constantly and living a good life.
Forget about Whistler. So,
Yeah.
of all the mountains in the world, what's your favorite mountain to ride at? Not including Whistler.
Not including favorite mountain to ride at. Oh,
Or favorite couple.
I always love racing in Italy. Not necessarily for the riding, more for just the people and the passion behind the sport.
Yeah.
But Europe, like Italy, Switzerland, Austria, these are, beautiful. France, beautiful countries. Um, yeah, the racings. I remember World Championships. I think it was in Meta if I'm pronouncing it right. I There must have been like, 60, 70,000 people on the side of the hill in the World Championships.
Man.
It reminded me of like this previous year's World Championships in Liège.
Yeah, Leger. Yeah.
I mean, that was bonkers. That was like, if you were
Yeah.
there, or if anyone that was there is listening to this and they would have seen it, it's like wild. Like downhill is alive and well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We were there together, right? Seeing tear down the barricades and the
Oh, it was
signage.
it
It was a stampede.
yeah, it was very, very cool.
All right, Andrew, let's get back to your career.
Yeah.
So, mountain biking really, exploded in the 90s, right? Mid 90s through the late 90s. And in that time, there was also the sort of explosion of, or infancy and then explosion of mountain biking films. It was kind of before YouTube and before social media, right? So it was like the feature film was what it was all about, right? You got called up a bunch of times for films like that. Tell us about some of that excitement.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first film was like back when I was with Marin, it was called Vicious Cycle, and I'm trying to remember who filmed it, but they were using 16 mil film, back when there was no digital, it was all film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was my first kind of like taste of what it was like to try to film for something.
What did they have you do, for example? Did you just have to ride a sick
Just
wind?
like, whatever, hauling ass down a fire road or trying to hit something or, it wasn't like crazy.
Yeah.
And then obviously, fast forward through uh, late 90s, early 2000s is where it really started to take off. And the whole free ride discipline started to take off, and the industry started to recognize what was happening and from what athletes were doing, and then photographers and the whole media landscape, I would say, grasped the whole media, like the magazines, they all grasped onto it.
Yeah.
And, Bike Mag was considered like the holy grail of if you got a cover on a Bike Mag, that was
Yeah.
like a gold medal on the racing side. Or
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was really looked at as like the pinnacle of what it was like to be a freeride athlete, to get those covers.
I guess I got to ask then, do you have a cover on Bike Mag?
I do. I'm fortunate. I have some covers. Yeah, I do.
Sweet. So some, meaning more than one, huh?
More than one. Yeah. Yeah.
You get any covers on some like European mountain bike mags too?
I think so. Yeah. I have a few. I have a few, but I can't, yeah, no, I have a few, but I can't totally remember. But
Is there a Shandro Wall of Fame in your house with, framed
well,
covers?
Bike Mag, this was really cool back in the day. They would, if you got a cover, they would send you a framed
Oh, cool.
cover.
Yeah.
So, I got to work with some incredible photographers. So like Sterling Lawrence and Blake Jorgensen and Gibby, these photographers are made anyway. So I got to shoot with them amongst a bunch of other friends here and riders and stuff like that.
Let's move on to sort of the next chapter of your life. So, at what point did you decide to transition away from racing to do something else, and what was that?
Yeah, like I said, if you growing up on the North Shore and a lot of the free ride kind of movement started here, like, it was BC sort of based, but there was a lot of media attention on the North Shore. And so since I was born and raised here, I dabbled in a little bit of like movie stuff and shooting with photographers and whatnot. But I would say like I really sort of made that transition in 2000 is when I stopped racing, 2001. So I raced World Cups, call it for 10 years on the World Cups, or raced pretty much full on for 10 years. And um, I needed a change. I needed a sort of new challenge, I'd say. Like I lost the sort of competitive, I don't know, edge you call it, whatever. I just didn't have that
Yeah.
passion and drive to keep racing. And then, like I said, the free ride movement was really starting to gain more traction and attention. And so then opportunities started happening. And then 2001, I think, was it Rampage? Was the first year of Rampage? Or 2002?
Mm.
2001, I think. And then prior to that, we were down in Utah shooting for a movie in that same location of where the first Rampage was. And so we got to like ride this terrain that was then, well, Rampage followed the prior year. Anyways, it was very fortunate. Like I felt like we were in on this ground floor with Rampage and some of this free ride movement, and it was really exciting. And we got to do some incredible trips. And you asked me earlier, where did I get to go? Or, I got to travel to Europe, but on the free ride side of thing and trips, like we got to go to, Morocco and Iceland and Norway and, some amazing countries.
Andrew, coming back to Rampage, did you compete in the first Rampage?
No, I didn't compete in the first one. I competed I think it was the second, third, and fourth one.
And how'd you do?
In one, I didn't make it to the finals. I must have detonated early on, didn't qualify.
Yeah.
And then in one, I got second. I got second. The year that Cedric won, I got second. And then the next year, I think I crashed again and hurt myself. And that was it. I was also at that time, like, I wasn't one of the young guys.
Right.
Like, I'd raced World Cup through my 20s, and then I kind of did free ride stuff a little bit later. And then Rampage, I think the year I got second, I was 32 or something.
Right.
And then we started a family and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I got to compete in Rampage, and like again, like really fond memories of like what it was all about. It was so cool. It was really fun to be a part of it.
Rampage then wasn't all that different than it is today. It's in the same spot, right? They move around on the mountain, but it's still in Virgin, Utah, right? Would you compete in today's Rampage with some of the lines and drops that the guys are taking?
Like if I was 20 years younger,
Yeah, if you were 20 years younger, would you be taking some of those lines and drops?
I mean, maybe, I don't know. Like, I don't like what the athletes are doing now. Rampage is bonkers, and what it's turned into. I think back when we were doing it, when it was for us, it was it was kind of it was gnarly and it was a crazy. It wasn't
Sure.
as manicured. So I guess at the time, it's all relative. You fast forward 20 years, or I mean, I can look at what they're doing and I can kind of visualize doing it. Now, whether or not I would say I do it, I don't know. Maybe, certainly not, certainly not now. Maybe 20 years ago in my 20s, I would have. But yeah, we were doing stuff that was fairly significant for sure in the early 2000s.
So you weren't a professional racer any longer.
Yeah.
You were just doing, a variety of things. You were filming content or people were filming you for content for movies. You were doing the one-off random events like a Rampage. What was paying the bills?
Yeah, I mean, I was a paid free ride athlete, so I was paid by different brands to represent, so just to go on photo shoots and be in movies and living a good life, and but also trying to like I think it was in 2002 is when I had an introduction to John Riley from Trek Bikes. Um, and that would have been the same year then I started my camps. I know we'll probably talk about that a little bit, but
Oh yeah, yeah,
um, that was when I first met JR. And back then, Trek wasn't really in the whole freeride scene much. Certainly, little
yeah.
they dabbled in downhill, but not so much in the freeride. And Riley came up there and he got to experience what Whistler Bike Park was all about, and like where potentially this sport was going to go. And we formed a relationship, and then within the next 6 months, I think I'd signed with Trek as a just a free ride athlete and kind of development stuff, and sort of that was 20 something years ago.
What a great ride, and you've been with Trek ever since, right?
I've been with Trek ever since. Yeah.
20 years,
Well, maybe
about that.
maybe longer. What was it? 2002, right? 21
Yeah,
years.
21.
Yeah.
Wow. I want to talk about things you might have done differently, either as a racer or in your early years of your career.
Yeah.
Like, what would you have changed? What would you have done different?
I think there was probably time, well, for sure there was times through my racing career where I maybe lacked a little bit of focus, or I lacked a little bit, I wasn't competitive as I could have been, and so I think maybe just been a little bit more present for each race, I would say.
Yeah,
Like you don't get another chance once that race is over. You go to the next weekend, you're judged as you're only looked at as you're as good as your last race,
yeah,
and the harsh reality of being a professional athlete. But I would say like that. I mean, say maybe sometimes I was a little bit like I should have just been a little bit more present and like just put my head down a little more in certain races. I had some success at the top level World Cups. I think sometimes I was a good rider, but my racing craft could have been better. But then I had some success too at times throughout my career where I did well at, Norba national events, or like these random like Reebok eliminators, or downhill manias, four people at a time, and like snow biking. I did well at that. I kind of did well at different things at time to time, and I had some success for sure. But yeah, I don't know. That's probably if I was critique myself.
today's teams and racers have a whole community, almost an entourage around them. There's the coach, there's the mental, psychologist, there's the chef, the nutritionist, there's the soigneur, there's the mechanics,
Yeah.
all this support. Did you have any of that stuff while you were racing?
Um, yeah, I mean, we had mechanics. There were like on the teams that I were, we had mechanics and kind of sort of road managers. You had the odd massage therapist once in a while. You maybe have a soigneur, or not to the same level. But
Yeah,
in the mid 90s, mountain bike racing was full on, and the industry was well supported.
yeah,
But certainly other teams, bigger teams had, more staff, more resources and whatnot. Um, I rode for a few different teams at the time. So, I rode for, like I said, Marin for a few years. And then I kind of had to do a semi-privateer thing for a while, rode for Troy Lee, and like I think I was on GT frames, and then I ended my sort of racing career at Da Vinci with Ford. Da Vinci was sort of a Canadian backed team,
yeah.
and we had good support. So I mean, I was fortunate to ride with some amazing athletes and good support. But yeah, now the racing world is certainly like next level in terms of the trucks and the big rigs and the support staff and chefs and the media crew. It's pretty full on.
It's incredible for sure. Andrew, throughout your career, have there ever been any big obstacles or hurdles that you've had to overcome, either physical, mental, social,
Yeah.
cultural?
I mean, fortunately, through the racing career, I didn't have that many injuries. I mean, I had collarbone or wrist injury, or but those aren't, I wouldn't say, major injuries. I got hurt, I would say, later, almost on the free ride side stuff. Had some more serious injuries.
Yeah.
Um, I did my ACL when we were in Morocco shooting, and you're in the middle of nowhere and you just snapped your ACL, and you're like, okay,
Mm.
this isn't good. But I mean, nothing that I would say that like, like, yeah, you have minor setbacks, but they weren't like career altering.
Let's talk about Trek, and then I want to go to the gravity camp.
Yeah.
So, tell us about your relationship with Trek, and what did you do back then? Were you just an ambassador, and what do you do today?
Yeah. So yeah, I started off as like an ambassador, a free ride athlete, and when I got second, I actually was on Trek, and I was riding a Trek diesel single pivot bike, which was really cool. Anyways, yeah, free ride stuff, ambassador when I first signed on. And then as the free ride world changed and slope styles started being introduced, I certainly wasn't competing in that discipline, or, I was certainly not good enough, and it was changing rapidly.
Yeah.
And I sort of presented Trek with the idea at the time of like, hey, I think we need to hire some new athletes, and I can help you guys do that and identify some talent. And so that's kind of how it started. And then so my first hire was Chemical, and then the second big hire was Brandon Semenuk when he was 15, I think.
14.
15.
Yeah.
I think we got him frames. I think I got him frames when he was 15. I mean, I could talk at length about that, but so it was amazing. Trek entrusted me to build a program for them. So then I had the ability to like I said, Cam, um, Brandon, R Dog, Casey,
Yeah.
Emil. I remember getting Emil on our bikes after
Brett.
Crankworks. He was on a competitor's product, and we talked to I just talked to him and BS with him for a while. I said, "Man, and I could see sort of the trajectory of where Brandon was go. That was when Brett was with us too, and Brandon, and maybe how long they were going to have their slopestyle career, and then so just sort of trying to like have backup as needed, and have this team that was just an absolute powerhouse.
Yeah.
So that's been really fun because obviously that program and the athletes have that it's been very impactful.
Andrew, behind the scenes, there's an organization, within Trek or with you called C3. How did that form, and what the heck is it, and what does it stand for?
Yeah, so like we wanted to kind of coin it as an acronym, and I don't know where work. I think it was cinematics, competition, and creativity was what it stands for.
Okay.
And so I think, like, what do you call this program? Like, do you call it the Trek Freeride program, or do we call it a name? So that's where that name came from. Now it doesn't get really used as much, I would say, anymore.
Yeah.
The athletes are becoming, well, certainly they're their own brands and their own, and
Right.
so you're a track athlete, and what do? You can, whatever it is, but like Brandon and Casey Ardog, all of them, and Emil, they're just, they're track free ride athletes, they're lifestyle athletes, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
yourself.
So you kind of act like a talent scout for Trek.
Yeah, I would say so. It's a talent scout. It's like, I feel like, yeah, I try to like connect the dots for us, and then making sure we have the right type of athletes. And then on the product, and also on the product side, I've been heavily involved with early generation, and like again back in 2000, 2003, starting with the product crew and helping on the development side.
Fast forwarding to today, so ambassador, talent scout, product tester. What else do you do at Trek?
Yeah, so I've been co-managing the World Cup downhill team since 2019. Um,
Okay.
Ryan Gall and myself, who works internally at Trek HQ, he does a lot of the heavy lifting, no doubt about it. Um, but we kind of share the duties a little bit. But I work more like, again, with the athlete service thing, and the planning, and just mentorship as best I can, and being there for the athletes, and then future athletes, and helping that where that looks and where the future for our programs look, and um, it's fun, it's dynamic, it's no doubt, there's like, it's constantly changing. and it's been exciting to be a part of. And World Cup racing is definitely full on.
And Andrew, those responsibilities for World Cup racing, it's cross country, enduro, and downhill,
No,
right?
I only just do the downhill stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a whole other crew on the XC, but I just do downhill, and then yeah, we talk a little bit of enduro as well.
Yeah.
But the main focus is TFR, Truck Factory Racing downhill, and then development stuff, and then future athletes, and so yeah.
Andrew, this next section, to change gears slightly, no pun intended, is our community section.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we love at SRAM is, our athlete partners like yourself, they do amazing things on the bike, right? That's what got you in the spotlight. But we also love and want to celebrate what you do off the bike to make this world a better place. And tell us about the Summer Gravity Camp, and when did it start? What's it all about? And how's it going?
Okay. So it started in 2002. A lot of stuff started in 2002. Yeah,
Yeah,
we should
right.
check. Yeah, so quickly the bike park opened, I think in 2000 or 99 to 2000. Um, since I was a skier, and I realized I'd been to a couple ski camps on the glacier camps, and they're like summer camps, week-long camps. The bike park in Whistler being like the first real, the first bike park in the world, I think. Um, I came to them with the idea of just of offering a week-long mountain bike camp in the bike park
For kids or for
for
adults?
kids. Yeah. It
Okay.
started off as just kids only.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And then like fortunately, like there was people who were running the show, running the bike park, like Rob McSkimming, you may recognize that name, and some people some long time. They were real supporters of the bike park in Whistler. They got it and they understood it, and that's how it started. So I've had a partnership with the mountain again since 2002. Um, and then back then I was I was coaching, driving to the airport, picking up kids, coming back. You start doing everything as a small little business owner. And
Yeah.
yeah, we now we're in year whatever it is, 22, 23. We have youth and adult weeks. Through COVID, obviously, we got shut down and we just did weekend camps just for domestic
Yeah.
travel and whatnot. And now we're back up and we host youth and adult week camps in Whistler.
If you're a kid listening to the show or even an adult listening to the show, you can just hop on like whistlerblackcomb.com and
Yeah,
find the Summer Gravity Camp.
yeah, summer gravity camp. So we'll give you all the information you need. It's enjoyable. Like I still love doing it. I like working with the kids and the youth, and the adults is a totally different,
Yeah.
deal, and they have fun, and you're like, I feel like everyone's enjoying themselves, and it's a positive things in everyone's life. These kids they're begging to go to camp. It's not like their parents
Yeah.
sending them away, like, and the adults there,
Yeah.
this is their holiday, and it's so we have a good time doing it.
You've guided them through the years, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've been lucky. I mean, we've been fortunate to have like we got kids that have been coming to the camp for years and adults, but kids that then have transitioned and done different things in life, and like top athletes. I mean, back to like when Finn Isles came to camp. I remember his mom and dad sent me an email and asking me, they're like, he's really good and he's only 9. I'm like, oh, he's pretty young. We used to do it where you had to be 13 to attend, but now the kids, obviously now what's happened with kids like 9, 10-year-olds are shredding, and so we allow younger kids to come. But yeah, no, we've been able to work with like hundreds of different kids.
So Finn Isles attended one of your camps and now he's a pro mountain biker.
Yeah, he came for like 3 or 4 summers in a row. Yeah,
That's great.
and his brother Jack was a shredder too. um
That is amazing.
lots of local talent.
Andrew, and I know also from, talking with you through the years, you also provide a sort of mentorship role to the community at large, right? Why do you think people look to you for advice and feedback, and sort of what role do you play there?
Well, I don't know. Like it's people maybe that are younger athletes that I've sort of like maybe I've known throughout the years from the free ride world or in the race world. I have a connection with, or they came to camp and then they went on and became racers or whatever they end up doing. I don't know. I think I remember, vividly remember having support at a early age when I started racing that have one or two people that really kind of looked out for you, or you were able to bounce ideas off, um, that really helped me. And
Yeah,
it made a mark, and it made an impact, and it really helped me sort of like make the right decision in this. So I don't mind, I still do it today. I don't mind, these people that I know are young kids or whatever, who it is, just once in a while I'll get a message, hey, can I ask you a quick question about something? And if I have the time, I usually try to do it. It's not a big deal, you do the same thing if you can help somebody, and
for
it's
sure.
easy for me to do it. So yeah, I enjoy it, and I realize how it can just like a short little quick conversation, and it can help out and make an impact for people.
Well, Andrew, we are almost out of time, but we do have one last section. It's our speed round or quick fire this or
Yeah,
that, where I fire 15 this or that's at you, and you just tell us what you like. All right,
okay,
you ready?
do it.
Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles,
Coffee or tea?
coffee,
Tacos or burritos?
tacos.
Spicy or mild?
When I say medium,
You could say medium. Cold weather or hot weather?
oh man, I love both.
If you had to live in the rain or the snow,
Snow,
mountains or the beach,
mountains.
cities or suburbs,
I mean, I live in the city, and it's not the city, North Shore. It's like you can see that. I don't know. I'll say city because the North Shore is close to the city.
cars or trucks,
Trucks,
pavement or dirt,
dirt.
gloves or gloveless,
I'm 50-50.
clipped in or flat pedals,
Clipped,
low pressure or high pressure in your tires,
low pressure.
fix it yourself or take it to a mechanic.
Recently fixing myself.
And last question, dogs or cats?
Dogs.
All right, man. Andrew Shandro, you're awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your stories, the highs, the lows, the fun. It's been really cool.
Thanks for having me, DZ.
Yeah, man. Have a great day, okay?